morning. Good morning to all of you. It strikes me that even about, say, 5 years back, we would have been discussing a topic like this. The to tell or not to tell, dealing with the difficulty in children's books. It's really something that I think in the last 5 years, there's so much of these kind of so many books being published, and I was curious to see when did we start and what kind of books have been published and what are these difficult themes. And as you know, we're dealing here with books. We will deal with books that are for let's say the 10 plus, which would be teens overlapping YA. I don't think we have a very distinct YA category yet, which really was a marketing a category created for marketing in the US and so on, where it begins, and caught on in many countries throughout the world. And we are very new. Children's publishing in India is just what specialized children's publishing, about 25 years old, and and so YA was not anywhere in the picture. But suddenly, and when I say YA, I do mean teen fiction and YA. Suddenly, there is a lot of it happening. So this is a kind of jump ahead and are doing a lot of this. And so looking back, actually, I just thought I'd go through some of the books and when they were published and what kind of themes they dealt with. The first I could find is just a train ride away by Menon, published by Radhika, a Balasahitya's first card award winner. This was 2006, about a boy coming to terms with his parents' separation. Radhika's Faces in the Water by Puffin, which dealt with female infanticide. My Brother Tutu by Umila Mahajan, about a young boy falling into the dangerous trap of drugs. Really small boy. Paro Anand's Week by Lori Books, and No Guns in My Gun, Son's Film of India in 2005. Both books dealing with the subject of terrorism actually. Paro's White Child and Other Stories. She's also Balasahitya postcard winner. White Child and Other Stories by Puffin in 2011 that addresses issues of sexual abuse, terrorism, and it's a collection of stories. Communal hatred, failure, and loneliness in its 12 short stories. Guns on My Red Earth by Swati Sengupta by Red Turtle 2013 about a child soldier who fled a Maoist group. Himanji Shankar's Talking Muskan, Dublin 2014 on teen suicide. Wild Heart Slightly Burned 2014 Gooseberry about a teen coming to terms with her friends on homosexuality. Dear Mrs. Naidu by Madhuri Subramanian, Young Zuban 2015 about right to education set against the background of urban poverty. It's winner of the 2016 South Asian Award. The Boy Who Speaks in Numbers by Mike Maslamani, Tara Books 2015 is a satiric account of childhood during the war in Sri Lanka. When She Went Away by Andali Pati, April, about a girl whose mother leaves her family for the home. Half the Field Is Mine, Swati Sengupta, Scholastic India, a story about girls' passion for football, which deals with class and generation. Gender Talk, a non-fiction book on sex and gender issues, Tulika 2015. Being Boys, Tulika 2015, an anthology of boy stories dealing with themes of sexual identity, caste, young boys caught in the Naxal police conflict, bullying, and so on. Hot Chocolate is Thicker Than Blood by Rupa Gulab, Ductil 2016, YA Adoption. Invisible People, Stories of Courage and Hope by Harsh Mandar, a non-fiction book about people who live on the streets, brought up by Ductil. Radhika Nambi's Unbroken, Ductil ability, coming to teen with teen issues, coming to terms with teen issues, a young boy good books about India. Radhika Coelho's boy number 32 about an orphan caught in a bomb blast in Bombay, Scholastic 2017. Siddharth Sharma's Year of Weeds, February 2018, about the atrocities committed by mining companies on the Adivasis. Paro's latest, The Other Stories of Difference, Speaking Tiger 2018, stories about suicide, loss and grief, difficult relationships, sexual identity, sexual assault. The Boy with Two Grandfathers by Dinesh Nivasi, what losing a parent, a young world, Kulika Good Book, a young world, Good Books Award winner, Kulika 2017. The My Diary series of 3 books about growing up of experiences of this little girl Mai, from pre-teen to teen to young adult, and covers all the difficult issues and questions. Mai Will Not Be Quiet 2011, and the Radhika and the Corona book. A Girl Like That by Tanas Gatina, India, Penguin 2018, a debut novel that tackles complicated issues of race, identity, class, and religion. So you can see what a wide range of issues have been dealt with in these books. And as I told you, it is really in the past 5 or 6 years that we see a lot of it in the past. So there's clearly a trend. There's a clear trend and a there's a sweeping change in publishing. I'm publishing these kind of books. And what do you think? Is this a publishing, are we following a publishing trend, or is it a response to something more specific in with a changing cultural context?
I think when I wrote and published No Guns at My Son's Funeral, I think amongst the years that you mentioned, maybe it was one of the earliest ones, which it's a book which deals with a young boy becoming a terrorist, 12-year-old who becomes a terrorist, is seduced into terrorism in Kashmir. So at that time, because it was kind of a brave new step, we took it to schools. And I have to say that almost all the, of course we chose our schools well, but almost all the schools that we did take it to were very open to this. And I think that has kind of led the way to, showing that these books are needed. These are stories needing to be told, discussed. And so No Guns at My Son's Funeral, published in 2005, still in 2018, is in print and is on recommended reading list or curriculum study in schools. On the other hand, of course, Like Smoke also did get banned. So of course it's a difficult.
About
yeah.
That I think is a very important issue to discuss. Jerry, what do you think?
Personally, I have no faith in the publishing industry. I think it is largely decided by a bunch of people who have very little contact with the outside world. They almost all live in Delhi. They are Delhi-centric, they are middle class, and they are only brave until the moment arises when there will be a problem. So I have no faith in a continued association of the publishing industry with difficult themes. I think it will last until the first problem steps up, the first court case happens, and then everyone will shut up and go. So we are in the springtime now of the honeymoon period of this publishing. But we've got to actually, I think again and again my feeling is writers in this country are unprotected. Publishers at least have legal counsel. they have established legal counsel. Writers are unprotected, and it's time writers got together, formed a union, set down legal counsel, and prepared for the worst, because the worst is on the horizon. Rising intolerance, and these subjects require tolerance, because when your child walks into a library, the school library, and confronts a story about homosexuality, that to the educator is part of the great diversity of human nature that the child should experience. But to an orthodox or conservative parent, a child bringing home a book about a gay boy is something that should not happen because of the much wanted, much spoken about innocence of childhood is being destroyed by the horror of sexuality. It's as if parents, conservative and orthodox parents, live in a world where they don't know that their 8-year-old has access to XXX pornography on his best friend's mobile phone. It's as if these two things don't exist, as if books have to be in some sort of rarefied realm of great sort of significance, moral authority, and everything else in the world is different. So we have a terrible double standard. Finally, I would like to say almost every one of you as parents is guilty of having bought highly casteist and objectionable stories for your children. They're concealed casteism. It's called the Jataka tales and the Panchatantra. In story after story you are told how a fox and a crane go out for lunch together. Or the fox invites the crane for lunch and serves food on flat plates so the crane can't eat. Then the next day the crane calls the fox over for lunch and serves food in narrow jars so the fox can't eat. And the moral of this is no interdining. Only eat with your own kind of person. In tale after tale, an animal from one species will make friends with an animal from another species, and that animal will try and eat them or kill them or take their heart, the wife's heart for the monkey's heart for the crocodile's wife's. This thing, what are they saying? They are warning you to make friends only with your own kind. And so those stories need to be rewritten. They need to be rewritten so that the fox and the crane have this moment. The fox is not ready to feed the crane. The crane is not ready to feed the fox. But the third scene should be the fox and the crane meet in the market, and the fox is buying a narrow jar for the crane to eat, and the crane is buying a flat plate for the fox to eat, and then they eat together and they're happy and they're still friends. But you will go out and buy stories for your aunties, for your little nieces and nephews, because you are good aunties and uncles, you will buy them books that are teaching them to be friends with their own kind. You have not even stopped to examine what are the hidden messages of these stories. What chance is there that a child brought up on that will be able to read Paro's book and accept the other and accept that there is difference? Why is it that we do this to our children? Why can't we have another way of looking at children? Why can't you let a child free in a bookshop to choose his or her own books instead of buying illustrated classics of India for the 500th time, or Book of Why and Book of When, because you're so interested in getting that child to be an IIT engineer? There's not one IIT engineer sitting in this room, but there's Wendell Rodriguez who's a designer. What if your kid wants to be a designer? Why would you force feed them with fact when fiction is so much livelier, so much richer for the mind, and so much longer lived?
I think it's not as Pinto taken from me.
She's a publisher.
25 years.
She's got legal counsel.
No, I don't. And no, what works is that it's a very it's such a chaotic market, the Indian book market, and certainly the children's book market, and especially the smaller publishers, smaller independent publishers trying to distribute and reach out to their books, that there's no system, and this actually works in our favor, which I have always felt, because many, and also this media attention, unfortunately or fortunately, with the online blogs and so on, there's a lot of that happening. There's focus on just one kind of thing. Things do get skewed, but there is a media attention. But what I mean is, so many things slip through the cracks through the, many books. Meaning, our Why Girl by Mahashweta Devi was banned in Madhya Pradesh. She was locked in the Godan and never got out of the Godan. Hasn't stopped us from books. No, I mean, it was done by one government. It just didn't go. Because there was a little girl in that, a picture book. A little girl asking why, questioning what is happening. Now that was not accepted. So shocking when we first heard, but not so shocking perhaps. So I think those things keep happening, and we have brought out these books which have just been there. Sujata, what do you have to say?
It's terribly unfair to ask me to speak after Jerry first.
No one mentioned me.
But I mean, not to I can't even comment on what Jerry says, because I think there's a truth in it. I think there's an immense truth in it, but there's also a responsibility, and I look at the responsibility as someone who works in education. In order to, I don't think it's so easy to open your mind to look at books. As Jerry says, we are a culture that has never ever looked at texts like that. And I really feel this is our responsibility to scaffold this opening of minds. And therefore we definitely need to see more book discussions, more open fora where we can talk openly about how we feel about books. So that's just my wee comment on what Jerry said. But in terms of collection, as someone at the library and has been working with collections, for me, what has been wonderful is this opening up of the young adult or the nomenclature aside, books that we can bring into classrooms and into library collections that in some way reflect some kind of a context for us here in India. Like talking about Muskan, I think was the first book on sexuality that really was bold and brave and enabled conversation in a middle school classroom that we could have never had without that book. And I think that whole area of sexuality is something even the Indian publishing industry is still afraid to enter into, because for some years I'm looking to curate a collection on sexuality to take to students, and it's hard. There's this one book you didn't mention, and I'm curious to know why. Smitten by Ranjit Lal, which has sexual abuse that's in the family. I think Zuban or Yan Zuban have done it. I don't know
I
when.
also have a sexual abuse.
Yes, yeah. And so that's a standalone text, but it's not handled well. And it's, so the treatment even. So it's one thing to bring difficult themes, but do we also have writers and editors and publishers who will handle it in a way that, I feel that's also our responsibility.
Yeah, that opens up another set of questions and issues. We talked about banning the way the responses to books with difficult themes, especially books on sexuality and issues like that. There is a lot of resistance even now, and not just to that. Even we have this collection called Being Boys, and Jerry's written this story about bullying. And there was this a mother who came and picked up the book and took it home. And she came back a week later and she said, "I'm so upset. How could you have a story that is so violent in the book?" And we were very taken aback by her. And she was really very emotional about it. And we actually put back the book. She did not want it. So even to something like that, I mean, to that extent, you're protecting, you think you're protecting. If exactly. Whereas, yeah. So that is a very real issue. There's another one, and it's not just parents, it's the children themselves. So we have this book, the Mile series, where this is young girl's diaries. So she writes about beginning to wear a bra and the problems and so on. And one of the groups dealing with schools, who take books to schools, apparently they got a mail from one of the girls in the class, I think 12 or 13-year-old, very upset, saying, I want to meet you. And then she said, how could you talk about this with boys in the class? You know, how could you discuss, I think it was some other issue, grass came up from a library. Some other periods, I was so embarrassed. And this is a school in Chennai. You wouldn't expect this kind of thing, but clearly there is that from children. My brother is in the same school. What if he hears of it, and how could he do it? And the bra reference, the book was returned by the school, a very progressive school around here, and they came, the librarian, young man, came back saying, we cannot take this because you mentioned bra and things like that. So, those are the kind of responses you get, and that's something one has to deal with. And
well, for one thing, it's true that violence is easier to talk about. You can talk about death and violence, but sex is much more taboo. And I mean, you're dealing with teenagers. They're obsessed. So let's not pretend that they're not. And I've worked with over 3 lakh children. I've never once had a child say this wasn't appropriate for me. Certainly, I mean, of course there is the incidence of the word bra or periods or something like that which might put somebody's back up, but I've never had a single child say to me, you shouldn't have written about this for our age group, we weren't ready for it. It's parents, it's teachers, it's schools. Like Smoke was prescribed reading in a school, went home to 150 children, and the distributor called me in some distress saying they're returning the book. And what they were returning it about was that a Muslim boy and a Hindu girl fall in love and they kiss. One fleeting kiss. That was not acceptable. There's a father who dies, that no problem. There's violence, no problem. But gosh, this Muslim boy and Hindu girl should not kiss. But I've never had kids say that to me. That's what
I think, see, there is a complete misunderstanding about the function of a book in our society. Everyone thinks the book should be tailored to their sensitivities. I don't think periods should be talked about in class, so you should not talk about periods. Should I have freedom of speech? You'll ask that girl. The girl will want freedom of speech, but she will not be willing to give it to you, because her sensitivities are paramount. We are a nation of retards who always ask of the world that which we will not give to the world. So we will not give freedom to the other person, but demand a sanitized space for ourselves. And it is not a sanitized space, for heaven's sake, right? Your kid is going to school if he's 12 years old or 13 years old, he's going to school with a hard-on. He has an erection most of the day. He's thinking about sex and he's confronting violence of all kinds through the day. And if his fiction does not reflect that, it doesn't show that, what is the point of fiction? Then we might as well talk about Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And here we have one woman with 7 fully grown men. Right? I mean, you thought about the messages there? Right? You're thinking about the messages of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. You're thinking of Cinderella. Read the original Hans Christian Andersen stories. They are violent. She cut off her heel and she bled as she danced in the red shoes all the way to the church, leaving drops of glowing blood in the snow. Look at Bambi. First 5 minutes of Bambi, from the world's most sensitive studio, Bambi's mother is shot, dead. Meaning, what happened? bunch, parents. Why did you become nut jobs suddenly? You know, it's not just us. It's us as a society. This is our issue. It's not a publishing issue, it's not Paro's issue, it's not Dia's issue, it's not Sujata's issue. It's our issue. These are our kids. I don't like kids. Yeah, but they will grow up to be adults one day, then I can deal with them. I want nice, sensible adults who read good books. Get real, yeah.
Sujata, you should, how do you deal with this? Because no, because in the real world, I mean, in the sense, we have to deal with it.
Yeah, there is no easy answer, and yeah, I think like if I look at the bookworm experience, we've perhaps lost as many parents and children as we've invited in because we are talking about issues that maybe they are not ready for, or we have an uncensored library where we don't tell an 11-year-old you can't read this and you should read that, and parents do, especially middle class parents. They do get a bit rattled, like, are you sure this book is good for my child? You never ask these questions when you hand a mobile phone to your child, right? Is that good? So we also put certain, I think a lot about this, that there's so much weight on the printed text as though what you read you're going to do. So if there's a love scene, your child is stepping out tonight and so no love scenes. If there's some hint of any non-normative sexual behavior, it's putting my child on the path of something. I don't know where it comes from, but it's very present. But this censorship does not carry into other media, and that interests me. Why only books? So your children watch film, your children, I don't know what they do on mobile phones, but they're doing a lot, right? I'm sure there are message systems. Why you don't get rattled by it? So there's something about adults itself that intrigues me, and I don't have an answer. I just keep doing what we are doing and just keep doing it, that's all.
You know, there is a dance move that I saw for 8-year-old boys doing at a school. They all had towels between their legs and they were wiping their genitals. This was a dance move. Inevitably, it is Salman Khan who teaches us how to be sexual. Thank you, Salman. Shoot a black buck today, beat a woman tomorrow, wipe your genitals in public. This is the range of our sexual encounters with the world. So I'm saying, you can tell your child, ha beta, go up on stage and wipe your balls in public as a dance move. Really? And then you have the little girl coming up on stage in a short skirt and jerking her hips to a Bollywood song. But Paro Anand writes a book about terrorists, and we're all getting a little sensitive and shaky.
I was asked to speak at TED Talks on the 2nd of December, and then they actually withdrew the invitation. I was disinvited from TED. I'm very privileged to be, I'm sure, among very few. But the subject of the talk was, be brave, talk dirty to your kids. And they were curating me since June. And then finally on 16th November, they called and said, no, actually we don't want you because what you're saying is too controversial. And TED Talks to say that was such a disappointment, what was it? They were not willing to say what exactly what is. You can sing dirty, you can watch dirty. And my whole thing was Gandhiji's monkeys. I said, now you've got to see the evil, you've got to hear the evil, and you've got to speak out against the evil. That's what you need to do. But there it was disinvited, but I'm going to put it up on YouTube anyway.
I think TED Talks actually is now obviously enabling child molesters. If you do not have a way to talk to your child about sexuality, Your child has no way to tell you that he or she is being molested. She cannot come home and say, "Mummy, he touched my nunu," or whatever word you call it. Or, "Daddy, he touched my popot." Okay? How will he say it if you don't have a relationship, an open relationship with your child in which this
And read
information...
the book with your child. Read the book with your
Yeah,
child.
that's what I'm saying. So the idea is, can your child come to you and say, tell you about what happened in his sexual life with as much freedom and as much dignity, and without you being offended, or without you saying, "No, don't talk about these things"? Can you open that? You open that communication, you will stop child sexual abuse in its tracks. You'll be able to get it at the first instance of it happening. You'll be able to, if nothing else, you'll at least be able to make sure that uncle is not called to the house anymore. Because there's often an uncle in the family. Yeah? So, when you say, we are not going to talk dirty to our children, you're actually saying, we are willing to expose our children to the possibility of abuse.
But not to expose them to the dirt. Let them handle the dirt on their own. Because I'm too scared to handle it with my... And stories are the best way.
Absolutely.
I found that stories and fiction especially are the best way to talk about these difficult subjects.
Absolutely. But there's another kind of question that comes up. Is this kind of when you focus on certain issues. I mean, that's come up in Netflix series, 13 Reasons Why, of how a young girl commits suicide, and which is a book, and which is now being made into a Netflix series, and apparently has been triggering suicides, depression among young people. And Netflix has now put out not a disclaimer, but saying 13 ways of dealing with this, or how do you seek help, and have actually listed the organ in India. Because there was a marked rise in suicides or attempted suicides among teens. I mean, which is very frightening. It was a trigger, it was a film, so I went back to look to kind of see what happened to the book, which was published some years back in the US. There was nothing much that came up, but the people who written it, the author certainly was somebody who went through this himself, which is why he wrote the book. And so was the producer of the series, so was the screenplay writer of the series. All of them had been through this and so felt the need to communicate. But this is what happened, and this is what Netflix has put out. So, and in fact, in Chennai newspapers, there is an organization called Sneha, which had written, there was a news report saying, from now we get calls from all over India, seeking help. After this was put out, and Sneha was listed as one of the organizations. So, do books on difficult themes, especially on, and something to think about, especially on mental health issues, on body issues, do they kind of, they trigger a pattern of behavior? Are they triggering? And it came to my mind when a very sensible mother of an intern, editor who works in Liquor, she said, I don't know, meaning, so many young people, and we experiences to seem to have suffer from depression and are on medication and so on. So, are kind of books you write, talking about her daughter, meaning, is that setting off these things? What is your response to something, especially when you say, but Jerry, the Netflix thing is a reality. The film, and the book too, apparently. Meaning not as much as the film, so obviously film is a much more powerful.
When they did Eat, Love, Pray, the incidence of diabetes rose because everyone started eating. Why is that not the same thing? When they did Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, everyone ran on railway platforms trying to jump into trains while their boyfriends were wandering off. What is this about? Mental health is a real, very serious issue. Triggers can come from anything. Triggers can come from the death of your parent. Triggers can come from someone writing you a letter. Someone just saying in passing to you, something like, "Arey, what is the use of you? Yeah, you just ruin everything." Because you just messed up something like a telephone call, and you take that personally. And so I'm saying we need to be able to say we have for thousands of, or at least in my lifetime, we have pretended that our culture is so strong and so vibrant that mental health is a Western issue. It wasn't our problem. And if it was a problem, then take homeopathy, Baba. Carry force, 200. Yeah? That's what we did. We didn't think that, talking about it, all these things were important. And now we blame 13 reasons why. I don't think there is this causal connection between the rise in teen suicides. I think we have to look at our entire system. You have to look at the pressures children are under, the kind of percentages required to get into college, the body shaming that is routine on Twitter and on other social media, the kind of sexuality that they are being exposed to, the kind of demands on what they, like for instance, everybody in my class in school, in Mahim, had one play clothes, one Sunday clothes, and some home clothes. And you wore them all the time. Children, and we had 5-year plan clothes. People, my friend Naresh Fernandez and I both went to college with dark blue patches on our light blue trousers and dark blue V's on our bums. Why? Because the pant had been opened out and you were still going to use it. A child would die before doing this to him. They will insist on going to Jack and Jones and getting new clothes. This is a different world, and we are not respecting that difference, not analyzing how much these poor things. I sometimes feel horrid for them.
It's also like saying that you're reading a lot more about child molestation or rape and saying, "Aajkal bahut rape hota hai." No, it's just that it's being talked about. That's all. We know this. We know that child sexual abuse was always happening. Me Too has shown that no woman has not had some unwanted sexual encounter. Not one woman. And we say that, oh, it's happening so much now. No, it's because we're being brave to talk about it, and we need to be brave to talk about it with our young and really through stories.
I really think as adults, we are not ready for the childhoods our children are in.
Well said.
And so I really think one way is, even as adults, please read children's books.
Yeah.
Well said.
Because we really don't know what they contain, we don't know how they prepare you, we don't know how they invite you to think about things, to see a resonance in how you're feeling and the writers talking about something. I just feel we don't know. And in this country, taking page from Jerry and being bold and saying this, somehow we constantly dismiss anybody who works or anything that's done with children as a less than. So we as adults don't engage with this content. And therefore we are even widening the gap between what is there, how to mediate with children, whether our children should read or not read. It comes from ignorance. And I don't know how we get adults to become more aware of this. I think children are ready. They're so ready. And they embrace difficult things in books. If there's a responsible adult, present to talk after the book or to put that book in their hands. But it's the adults, other adults who are not ready. That's our problem. You have your own. Accept.
Okay. No, I completely agree, and all of us have to go through this learning, unlearning all the time when you're dealing with children's books. We certainly feel out of depth with a lot that is happening, and consult but the responsibility, as you said, the responsibility that you're dealing with young readers. I mean, who may be ready. But it's also, yes, it's also how a story is written.
Right.
How, to be able to assess that, it takes a lot of skill and sensitivity, which we are learning. I mean, it's not that we have the answers. And in the time of social media, where opinions are out, in a minute, there is no time for reflection. It's just there. Someone's opinion is out there, it goes viral, and before you know, you don't, and you're supposed to think and respond. You have these signature campaigns. It's for or against. There's just no time to reflect. At a time, and children are growing up in that world. Teenagers, teens up, and even younger. So these are the things that I think are huge challenges which we were not even aware of when we started as publishers and editors, as writers, and that is a huge issue. Now, meaning the last round, and then I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions. What are the challenges when you tackle a difficult theme, and the challenges of that you face, Jerry?
I did one book called When Crows Are White, which was about tolerance, and I wanted for a long time to talk about tolerance to children, but I remembered my instinctive rejection of a book that pointed a finger at me and said, "You must be tolerant, Jerry, because it is good for you." I didn't want to write that kind of book. And then one day I was woken up at 4 in the morning by a crow, and I thought, a murder of crows. And then I thought, crows kill crows that are different. A white crow will not survive for long. And I thought, I've got a way to do this. Then of course we overthought the book, and we over-designed the book. It was very beautifully done. But it was so beautiful, no child wanted ever to read it. Only adults wanted to look at it and say, "Oh, so lovely. Can I get this as a print for my wall?" And it's like, we can fail in so many different ways. It's not funny. I want to say this. I totally respect any person who has the bravery and the courage to be a parent. I get it. You have opened yourself to a life-transforming experience and a vulnerability that is unparalleled in human experience, because now the pain that you feel when someone hurts you is magnified when your child is hurt. I get that. But in protecting that child, in seeking to protect the child, you must ask yourself, are you exposing the child to greater damage? What is your role there? That's the question. That is your responsibility, your child, and whatever you do, you will bhugto later. So I don't have much to say.
For me, Radhika, the challenge is really after the story is written and read. For instance, in the other, I have a story on sexual assault or a coming out story, and the questions that follow. For instance, in Amritsar, Jerry, just right after our session, a woman came up to me and said, "My child has been sexually abused by an older child who was also a child. He was a teenager, and her son was like 7 or 8 years old. And she said, this is how we dealt with it. Is it all right? And should we have done something else?" And like that, the number of people in Chandigarh, last month, there was a man who came up to me weeping that his 13-year-old twin sister had been raped and he had not been able to do anything about it. And so it's that afterwards, literally, because I don't have those answers. I can do what I can do up to this point, but beyond that, the reader's got to take it forward, especially a young reader and their parent. That's it.
I think for me, the challenge is, as I work with other educators and try to prepare them to take difficult books out, is also finding ways in which for them to unpack their own notions, biases, prejudices about these difficult themes. So, because we are all part of the same system, right? So many adults come into education and library not having examined how to feel about a story on sexuality, or even on death, or even on violence. What's your position on, terrorism? If you've not examined that, I feel you're not responsible to open that book out for children, because when questions come, your own biases we can actually take away the author's words completely as mediators. So that's really a challenge, to find that time to strengthen and open out for each of us, because otherwise I feel you're not ready. You shouldn't mediate. You can keep the book, but don't be the person the child comes to talk about it after, ask a question, because then for me, in my mind, that's another kind of danger where we can, almost do something that the author didn't intend for us, or the book didn't want. So, while having a rich collection is so wonderful, then what you do, I feel, is again part of that responsibility.
But I think it's important to negotiate that space
Yes,
afterwards.
very much. And there's no avoiding it. It's a
no
natural
avoiding.
outcome of a difficult theme. You've triggered something, and there's going to be.
And children will come together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready.
You have to be that mediator.
Yes, but you have to be ready. Some young people are not ready. Or I don't know how to say this. Yeah.
And the worst possible thing you can do is say it's only a book.
Yeah.
This is the one
Most
thing.
reduction.
Terrified child comes to you with book and says, this is happening and what, and me and what, and you say it's only a book, don't worry. It's easy. I've heard this happen so many times, and I keep thinking, yeah, but it's not only a book. It's a condensation of human experience. This might be that experience. Now, how are you going to lead your child forward into the terror of the possible future? I mean, I don't envy parents, really.
Your audience?
Yeah. There's one over there, and then there's Wendy. Yeah.
My understanding of language is that it shapes thinking in certain ways, and a large part of India is not English thinking. So you've listed out a great number of books in English that are about difficult topics, but I feel like we're not making enough headway into making good translations so that there's actual vocabulary between parents and children. What's your take on that?
Who's?
Everyone. Like publisher, writer.
We all agree with you, but translation is always going to be a matter of love. No one pays you for translation, so the translator, my own experience is that I subsidize my translations because I get paid about like 20,000 rupees for a translation that may take about a year. Okay? So that means I'm getting paid about like 800 rupees a month or something to translate. Right? So I'm going to have to do it out of love. Now, how many people love, and then you're loving the cuckoo in your nest, which means like the time I could spend on my own writing, I'm giving to translation. So I must love that cuckoo more than I love my own bacche. Right? If translation could be paid better, but then that means translated books have to be bought more, because publishers are not going to give you more money to translate when 500 copies are sold, no sales. So the conundrum is, of course we need translation, but almost all translation that is happening is from other Indian languages, the bhashas as we call them, into English, and not even between bhashas. So it's terrible. You're completely right in putting that question to all of us. I often wonder what, faster Feni in Marathi, and after that what?
I think it's also a question of, and I'm slayed very often for saying this, English language publishers in India have been very brave in tackling and publishing difficult issues. A lot of Indian languages have not. So I have often faced the fact that my books are translated into French and German and Spanish and all of that. They're not translated into my languages. I work with kids in those languages and they say, how can we read you? And the fact is they cannot, because publishers in the languages have not been brave enough to publish them.
I think it's also the kind of book, it's true that there aren't the kind of books on difficult themes there are in English, but I think there are books with a different set of difficult themes, addressing a different kind of audience, with a different kind of sensibility. We are talking about two very different worlds. Now, I think in picture books, we publish in 9 languages. In picture books, we're able to make that, build that bridge. And but I'm not sure, and I'm constantly, just yesterday I was reading a Malayalam book. I'm always reading to see if we can get something that, from a very good writer in Mukund. But it was so full of caste references, which is part of that language, and he is a progressive writer. So then how do you translate something like that? And similarly the other way around. Now, any of the books we have mentioned, translating it into a language, who is the audience for that book? And how are they going to relate to that? It is an urban, city-centric, English-speaking kind of sensibility in those books.
But original writing in that is not happening either in the language.
I think there are. I think, but as I said, it is a different set of issues. It's probably poverty, caste, all these things dealt with much more in the languages than it has been in the English. And translating that is really translating to worlds which young people, and adults has a lot of that translation going, but teenagers and young adults, meaning are they ready for it? Will they be able to make that transition? Is the big challenge.
I have 2 questions. The first question is, why don't we have more books that celebrate the diversity in a child? When I got high marks in science and I told my mother I wanted to join Caton College, she said, oh, you want to become like a regular Goan, a cook. Then when I wanted to move over and get into fashion design, she said, oh God, I can see the sign already, you'll be a tailor, Rodriguez and Sons. So, and then that also limited me, because we always tell our children things like, you should do this. If you say you want to be an artist or a singer or a dancer, that's not allowed. You have to be a doctor or something professional. And then over and above that, as you're growing up, I realized that I wanted to do different things. There was no limit to what I wanted to do. Revivalist, environmentalist, etc., teacher. So why do we always, why aren't there more books that will promote the diversity of a child's possibility that we have to learn when we are 40? Okay, fine, now I think I have time for social work. Or now I have time for this. The second question is, I want to ask who decides that this book is for adult reading?
Yeah.
Because my last book, Postcan, had 4 sex scenes, and they all happen to teenagers or children. One gets buggered, one has sex with it's supposed to have sex with the master of the house. Only 4 scenes. But they said, sorry, this book cannot be put into a school, it has to go into colleges. Who decides what is adult reading and what is child reading?
I do think, Wendell, that we have a fair bit of diversity in children's picture books coming out of India. In fact, rich diversity at the moment, and I can see different groups of children we work with finding resonance and finding themselves now reflected in picture books that we didn't have even 10 years back. So I feel we are moving towards that reflection of possibilities. So in that sense, I feel we've got somewhere. Who decides? Unfortunately, we are the gatekeepers and adults.
When I meant diversity, Sujata, I did not mean a diversity in books. I'm talking about developing that child's mind. We tell them, you have to do this. You can't do multiple things in your life. Like I'm doing at the moment, but I have to learn it much later in life. They should have told me I can be a designer and I can be an environmentalist, and you can do everything if you want to do. Why is there why is that not promoted, that to make the child see a world that he or she is possible.
Wendell, again, is that only the job of the book? Or is that the job of the society?
It's the job of the parents.
Totally the job of the parents. I'm not a parent. I mean, I hope that these parents have allowed their children to do exactly what they want. I have seen Sujata's children seem like really extraordinarily amorphous and shape-shifting and whatnot. So, I mean, from long hair to short hair, all kinds of hair. I mean, I think, you see, what actually happens is the parent is the desire for the child to be everything that you want them to be. And I think every parent would just love it. But there are some things which are in the hobby box because they won't make you money. And there are some things in the profession box. So you must choose one thing from the profession box and you can choose some things from the hobby box. And if you want, you're actually saying hobby box is where I want profession, I part you know, you will starve and I will have to feed you for the rest of my life. I will have to worry about you. That's what happens here.
Last question.
Yes. Over there.
I'm fairly loud, it's okay, thanks. Sujata, my question is more for you. I constantly grapple with the fact that difficult themes are not introduced in our schools. It's definitely not in our school libraries. If I broach the topic with my 11-year-old who is practically grown up at bookworm, she doesn't want to talk about it. She's probably learned more about homosexuality watching The Modern Family than reading any book that she has touched. So how do we, and I've actually asked her, I said, in The Modern Family, I let her watch it so that, she gets a fair idea of what goes on. So I said, it's okay, it's acceptable, it's absolutely normal for a man to be married, to live with a man, or we are not allowed to, same-sex marriages may not be legal in our country. But she'll just nod and then she's not willing to talk about it. So parents, even if they try, no matter how open-minded we are, I realize sometimes if it comes through school, if it comes through peers, if it comes through around them, it's more acceptable. If it comes through YouTube, it's very acceptable. So how do we, should we have these kind of sessions where you have open to kids, where our tweens, where they are allowed, they discuss it with not their own parents because they don't like their own parents. How do we deal with this?
That's when you call the gay uncle.
Truly.
That's for my friends.
Truly, you have
Did
to
you
have
have children?
friends. Yes.
And the other question.
I had only one.
That other question.
It's more a statement really. I am a writer for children and I've touched all the topics that we talked about. But there's one topic on intercommunity, like the religious topics. The Hindu, the Muslim, the Parsi, the Christian. Whenever I have written a story and I have said anything that is slightly off, for example, I wrote a story on Ganesha in one of the stories, where this little child picked up the Lord Ganesha and hid it. Because he wanted to steal the laddu while the idol was not there. And it was a lovely story. I thought it was a lovely story. The Hindus thought it was a lovely story. But there was a Christian and a Muslim who said, don't put the story into your book because it's not going to, somebody is going to object to it. You cannot hold up the Lord Ganesha and hide it. So there are little things like this in the religious values that I don't know where to draw the line. I'm not asking you whether I should. I'm just telling you that this is another probably example in our society in India that we face.
You want to talk about self-censorship? Self-censorship is what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think you do. Let's say the taboo I put upon myself as a writer. Is there a line that I won't cross? Yes, there is. And that line is certainly not religion. I cross those lines. I would hide the Ganesha, no problem. I try, especially when writing for teenagers, to end the story on an upswing. That's the self-censorship I put upon myself. I don't want to leave my teen reader in such a dark place that they're left feeling hopeless, because it's a very dark time in any case in their lives. So I want them to feel that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But I think you shouldn't. You should write that story.
Yeah.
You're being respectful. You're not making fun of somebody. You're being respectful, and it's a story. So
there was a book, I've forgotten the name, about two terminally ill cancer patients. Sorry, the Fault in Our Stars. That caused a huge upswing in readership among children, because the two young people in that book actually cross that line, which is they have sex. But generally that is one of the things that, you'll have kissing and, I wrote a story about a young boy and he's a 15-year-old and he's fallen in love with a 3-4-year-old girl. Now he wants to say she's 13. By statistics, he can round off her age to 13. But all his friends think he's a perv because he's dating a 12-year-old. Because 13 sounds like, she's already 12, 3/4 is like difficult. And to make matters worse, she is his best friend's sister, which is another kind of line to cross. Now, if they had done, and the big thing that she's debating is, can she bear his saliva in her mouth? Okay. She's not done it before, she's thinking about it, and it is something that worries her. You have no idea how much editing I did with the editor of that thing. Because the boy is talking about, his friend is telling him you should masturbate before you go out on a date with her. Then you won't be too horny. Now that's good sound advice from one boy to another boy. And it's the advice I got when I was 13 and 14 and going out on my first date. But this is the point. Can we accept the levels of intensity and intimacy that our children are going through into our fiction? I think it's going to be such a difficult thing for us to accept, because we so want them to be that wonderful little child in the summery frock who's prancing about in the springs of the morning. We just want them to be like that. We don't want them to have genitals.